Coming up on WFT Midday, it's a damp and dreary Monday as rain continues, but we could see 80 degrees before the weekend. Your forecast is coming up.
Plus, federal workers in limbo as the fate of their jobs hang in the balance. How their direct supervisors are contradicting billionaire Elon Musk.
And a new spin on an old scam, what law enforcement officials say you need to look for to keep from becoming a victim. WFT Midday starts right now.
You're watching WUFT Midday.
Make sure to keep the umbrella at your side today, as North Central Florida is experiencing a significant soaker today. A look at the UF weather radar shows the band of rain moving through this afternoon. The UF weather team says parts of our area could see up to 2 inches of rain. This is WFT News. I'm Madison Ginsberg.
And I'm Krystal Felix. Right behind today's rain, we can expect a temperature turnaround. Let's get right over to UF meteorologist William Maxham, live in the weather studio, tracking a rain and a warm-up.
Yeah, we've got cloudy skies and sprinkles right now. The heavier stuff is just to our south, but just some light stuff right around the immediate Gainesville and Alachua County area. Southern parts, Marion County, that's where the heavier stuff is, into Daytona Beach. Ocala, light rain at the moment, but heaviest rain going to be moving through the center of the state. That's where low pressure is tracking basically from Tampa to Daytona Beach through the evening tonight, and that's going to bring the heaviest rain south of us, but sprinkles will continue all day and into really most of the night too. But the rain is going to get a little more off and on as we get later in time. Temperatures, they're not going to move very much from their current levels. We'll have highs in the 60s today. We're warming up around midweek ahead of our next cold front. That one going to be dry. However, this one moving through going to bring a significant dose of rain. We'll track the heaviest precipitation coming up in a couple minutes.
This week begins with more conflict and confusion for around 2.3 million federal employees across the country. Thousands were laid off or fired over the weekend, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown Jr., along with senior defense officers from the Navy and Air Force. Jay Gray takes a deeper look at the latest cuts and what could come next.
This morning, millions of federal workers wake up unsure if they'll have a job by the end of the week. President Trump pressing ahead with his aggressive government overhaul, delivering pink slips to employees across at least 18 departments and agencies.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce.
Around 1,600 USAID employees laid off late Sunday. A majority of the remaining staff placed on administrative leave.
Waste is pretty much everywhere. People ask, like, how can you find waste in D.C.?
Billionaire Elon Musk, head of the administration's self-proclaimed Department of Government Efficiency, emailing millions of federal workers over the weekend, asking them to list 5 bullet points outlining what they accomplished last week. Adding on social media, failure to respond before midnight tonight will be taken as a resignation.
What Donald Trump is doing is illegal, it's violative of our Constitution, and it has to be stopped.
That message from Democrats echoed in weekend town hall meetings across the country.
When are you going to wrest control as the Congress back from the executive and stop hurting your constituents?
Pushback also coming from inside the administration. The FBI, State Department, National Institutes of Health, Defense Department, and NSA telling employees to pause on responding or not respond at all to the proof of performance email. Jay Gray, NBC News, Washington.
Today marks the 3rd anniversary of Russia's Ukraine on Ukraine. European leaders have arrived in Kyiv to show support for Ukraine. WFT's Victoria Perez is live in the studio with more on the latest developments.
Entering the 3rd year of the conflict, peace talks have mostly been between the U.S. and Russia. Without Ukraine in the conversation, the country has been left facing uncertainty about its future. U.S. officials have now insisted that Ukraine can no longer rely on Washington for its defense, as President Donald Trump has been in talks with Russia about ending the war. Zelensky said on Sunday he's ready to resign as Ukraine's leader if Ukraine is granted NATO membership.
If it guarantees peace for Ukraine, if you really need me to resign, I am ready. I can exchange it for NATO.
It comes as UN Security Council is set up to vote on a draft resolution today regarding Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly is meeting after for an emergency special session. These special sessions usually take place when security councils fail to exercise its primary responsibility to maintain international peace and security. For WUFT News, Victoria Perez.
Pope Francis is continuing to battle pneumonia in both lungs. Over the weekend, Vatican officials say he did have some rough days. Officials say he is awake, eating, and continuing his treatment, but the 88-year-old is suffering from mild kidney failure and had a respiratory crisis on Saturday that required supplemental oxygen that he remains on. He also needed blood transfusions to address an issue with low platelets caused by anemia. Officials also said that mild kidney failure is under control, but the Pope remains in critical condition.
Back in the States, several recent outbreaks of measles across the country are raising alarm about public health, particularly as vaccine rates among children lag. Measles is a highly contagious airborne disease, and general symptoms include a rash of red spots, fever, cough, and red watery eyes. Nearly 300 cases were reported in the U.S. last year, according to the CDC. Medical experts say it's particularly due to the decline in vaccine rates. At least 700 CDC workers were laid off earlier this month, including scientists in the lab program that helps investigate what's causing disease outbreaks.
While I'm all for efficiency, if we do things the right way, if we go through a RIF, but the sledgehammer approach or just creating a list, knowing that those lists could be wrong and not correcting those things, and then just firing people on a whim is unethical.
While the vaccine won't prevent you from getting the measles, the efficiency rate for one dose is 93%, which is given to infants. The second dose given to kids around 4 years old is about 97% effective.
Right now, firefighters in Gainesville are working to learn what caused a home to go up in flames earlier this morning. The fire broke out at a home on Northwest 122nd Street that's not too far from Newberry Road. We know that deputies and firefighters from Alachua County and Gainesville Fire Rescue are all on the scene. Parts of Parker Road were shut down while crews fought the fire. We have a WFT reporter at the scene and we'll give you the latest on WFT.org and tonight at 5 on Channel 5.
As part of the Rawlings Elementary School turnaround plan, the School Board of Alachua County approved a new calendar in April. But board members are reevaluating the decision. WFT's Jada Ross details what went into this decision and the impact it could have on students and staff.
At the most recent School Board of Alachua County meeting, the board unanimously decided to pause discussion on the Rawlings Elementary School year-round school plan until March. The district committed to a 4-year plan with the state. School Board Chair Member Thomas Vu says the program has not shown success in the pilot phase and that it neglects to consider increased costs and community impact.
We did a terrible job at informing families that this year-round school was happening. We didn't get any type of input or engagement from the families or from the teachers and staff at Rawlings.
Vu noted enrollment dropped by 108 students, or 25%. Lynette Walker, a community member and education advocate, says the feedback she's heard about the decision has been mostly negative.
With Rawlings Elementary, I know it's kind of a defeat with most of my family because they're in school when the others are out.
However, Chair Member Lynetta McNeely thinks it's too soon to consider a withdrawal.
I've never seen us have a program and we don't look at the end of the year, and we're talking about this already.
March 11th, the board will bring the topic back up for discussion.
That was Jada Ross reporting. Before making any drastic changes, the board agreed to survey parents and staff. It will also work to determine if there will be any consequences from the state for pulling out of the plan.
If you got a text about paying your tolls, take a second look. Scam texts about toll payments are targeting Gainesville residents. If you got a message saying you need to pay a toll within 12 hours, double check before clicking on a link. It could be a scammer trying to steal your information or money. Multiple people say they've received texts telling them with urgency that they need to pay their tolls. But GPD program coordinator Brian Lewis says the Central Florida Expressway Authority will never request payment via text.
You can always call the Gainesville Police Department. We have a unit here to deal with fraud as well. So you can always call your local agency if you feel like your information has been compromised via electronic fraud.
GPD recommends you avoid clicking the link, report, and delete the text. And if you have already clicked the link, call your financial institution to make sure your credit card isn't hacked.
Conservative activist Charlie Kirk is coming to UF for his American Comeback Tour. Kirk became an online personality after his Prove Me Wrong viral videos where he debates individuals with opposing political views. He is also the founder and president of Turning Point USA, a conservative youth activism organization. Kirk will be on the UF campus Thursday at the Plaza of America starting at noon.
In Marion County, the public school system is hiring teachers for the upcoming school year. MCPS is looking for teachers at every grade level. They will hold a virtual hiring fair this Friday, February 29th from noon to 5 p.m. Neighbors in Bradford County can get a free health screening today. Firefighters are hosting the checkups at the county's library. Staff will check your blood glucose levels, blood pressure, and give you a free EKG. The free checkups begin in less than an hour at 1 and end at 3 p.m.
A Gainesville Cemetery's new app could help you find your loved one's grave. The Evergreen Cemetery is a 56-acre property where around 13,000 have been laid to rest. The 7-year project to create the app comes after 169 years of the cemetery's history. Evergreen Cemetery coordinator Karen Pruss says they've spent time digitizing all the records.
So if you say, where is my Uncle Joe buried, you can tap it into this app and it will give you a map, just like Google Maps, and it will walk you right to Uncle Joe's grave.
The app uses GPS system to pinpoint the grave's exact location. Testing on the app began over the weekend.
The Gainesville City Commission just solidified funding for the Streetery's expansion. They gave the go-ahead on a $3.2 million budget for a final design of the Streetery. The commission settled on a design with brick pavers, which increases the total cost of the design by about $500,000. The majority of the project's funding will come from the Gainesville Community Reinvestment Fund. Additional funding will come from the Tree Mitigation Fund and gas tax. Mayor Harvey Ward says the Streetery budget isn't tied to the city's general fund.
As we go into budget season and start having discussions about the overall general fund, this will not be impacted by any of that.
Engineers and designers will bring plans and costs back to the commission in the coming months. The mayor says they will continue programming discussions into next year, but plan to break ground later this year.
The second annual Vision Zero Open House will be this Wednesday to provide updates on roadway safety. The policy was adopted in 2018 by the City Commission to help eliminate traffic deaths and serious injuries. Neighbors can expect updates from the Transportation Department, public safety agencies, and community partners. The open house is from 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at the historic Thomas Center on Northeast 6th Avenue, and all members of the Gainesville community are encouraged to attend.
And speaking of roadway safety, drivers are urged to use caution while on the wet roadways today. You can see the off and on showers in Levy County from our DOT camera. You can see the drops of rain on the lens on State Road 27 near East 4th Street. UF meteorologist William Maxham is standing by tracking today's soaker across north central Florida.
Yeah, and the rains really have been picking up over the last half an hour across Alachua County up into southern parts of Columbia County, Union County. Expect these on and on rain showers all the way through the afternoon into the evening and through much of the night. Heavier stuff is going to be located just south of our area, but it's a nice dose of rain we're expecting today. We've already picked up over 1/3 of an inch on campus, and as we look from the campus cam, can't see very much except the gray skies and raindrops onto the lens of the camera. Rain, as I said, will continue pretty much all day. Temperatures, they're not going to move very much. We're currently into the upper 50s, and we're not going to see much warming. Highs today only going to be into the mid 60s as the clouds and rain remain in place. Temperatures tomorrow will be warmer. Thanks to the return of sunshine, the rain showers today, they're coming because of this area of low pressure. It's tracking from the Gulf of Mexico over central Florida and back into the Atlantic Ocean in the next 24 hours. And right underneath where that big L is where the heaviest rain is going to be through the next 24 hours. Then we've got a couple quiet days midweek, and then this system will drag through another cold front before the end of the week. Rain, though, going to be limited as that front passes through. Not so much today. The rain is going to be plentiful through the afternoon and evening. It'll start slowing down overnight tonight, but still sprinkles are likely to be happening at the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow, but the sun will emerge tomorrow afternoon and will dry out nicely and warm up. Ahead of our next front, we could be hitting 80 degrees before that cool air pushes in for Friday, but the rain pretty extensive today. It should be totaling anywhere between about 1/2 inch to maybe some locations picking up a little over 2 inches of rain. That rain will stop by the end of the the morning hours tomorrow, and then we'll see afternoon sunshine. Looking ahead into the weekend, things looking pretty good. In fact, this is the only rain we're expecting for the entire week. We do have a warm up. After the rains clear out, we're back in the upper 70s. Averages are into the low 70s, but another front at the end of the week just going to knock temperatures back a bit, but we're still pleasantly warm through the weekend. Highs will remain into the 70s, early morning lows, nowhere near freezing. We're into the 50s and 40s through the next 7.
Feeling anxious is a normal part of life, but for some, anxiety is more than just the occasional worry or fear. And those who are already nervous when it comes to flying may have heightened feelings with the recent headlines around air travel. Mandy Gaither has ways to cope with those flying fears.
From a fatal collision to a recent crash landing, it may feel like air travel is becoming more dangerous, but January's preliminary data from the National Transportation Safety Board appears to show a record low number of airplane accidents nationwide, 62 in total, and most were on private flights. That's 18 fewer accidents than the previous January, which had 80 accidents. Still, the fear of flying is common in the U.S.
It affects approximately 25 million Americans.
Psychologist Shavonna Childs with Cleveland Clinic says managing those flying fears starts before you get on the plane. Distract yourself with things to do for the trip and focus on the fun you'll have or whatever you'll do when you get to your destination. Childs says to also control what you can, pick the seat that makes you most comfortable, and choose an early and direct flight.
Travel early in the morning when the ground is cooler, because when we have the cooler ground, the air is cooler and there's less turbulence.
If you're feeling anxious on the plane, try deep breathing, meditation, and distraction with books, music, movies, or conversations with others.
There's also having positive self-talk, having some reality conversations. I'm okay. This is a plane ride. I'm almost there. I can make it.
And if your fears become overwhelming, Childs says therapy and medication can also help. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
For those with a flying phobia, cognitive behavioral therapy and exposure therapy can be especially helpful. Childs says through virtual reality games, a patient can be slowly exposed to different parts of flying and find some anxiety relief.
Apple has announced its plans to invest $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. Apple says the investment will create 20,000 jobs. The announcement comes weeks after President Trump imposed a 10% tariff on all imports from China. Most of Apple's iPhones are manufactured in China. The multi-billion-dollar investment includes building a server manufacturing facility in Houston, as well as expanding data center operations in 5 states. Apple CEO Tim Cook met with the president last week and hinted at the investment following that meeting.
Surging egg prices across the U.S. are starting to hit bakeries. The egg shortage is tied to the highly contagious bird flu virus, which infected flocks across the country last year. Some bakeries say they are now paying more than double the price from a year ago. Other bakeries say they might have to start using so-called egg replacers, another factor making business tough for bakeries in the sky-high price of cocoa.
Good news for people who can't tolerate or just don't like dairy. It won't cost extra to get plant-based milk in your coffee at Dunkin' anymore. The restaurant chain says the new pricing will start March 5th. A spokesperson said the policy change was guided by guest feedback, but competitors like Starbucks, Dutch Bros, Tim Hortons, and Scooters already made the change. And Dunkin' is also facing a class action lawsuit being accused of discriminating against people with milk allergies or lactose intolerance.
Now let's take a look at what's coming up on First at 5 at Channel 5. A large fire shuts down a road in Jonesville. Alachua County deputies and Gainesville police officers are on the scene. We'll bring you the latest on the investigation. Plus, a new safety app being implemented across Alachua County, why sheriff deputies are backing its use. And Narcan could be coming to some Marion County schools. Now, how this is part of the partnership between the schools and the hospital district.
Before we go, let's check in with William with the weather. What's going on?
It's raining, and we're going to see steadier rains through the next several hours, and That rain coming down pretty much all along I-75, so you're going to be turning on your windshield wipers, and there's not much going to change through the rest of the afternoon and really the much of the evening. Showers will continue. Temperatures will fall into the 50s before midnight, then eventually into the low 50s into the late night hours. The weekend looks nice. We're back up into the 70s with sunshine, and before we get to the weekend, temperatures may touch that 80-degree mark. Best chance looks to be Thursday, right before another cold front arrives. That's going to knock us back below average, only briefly. 60s Friday afternoon.
Thanks for joining us at WFT Midday. We're back here tomorrow for another edition.
We will see you later today for First at 5 on Channel 5. Have a great afternoon.